Would like to get, I know. I don't like you sitting all the way back there. I think you should come over here. Yeah, yeah. Oh, no, no. Jane said no. I know. Sarah, you going to close the doors? Well, welcome, welcome. We are the Florida Native Plant Society, Conradina chapter. I'm the president, Linda Gerasi, and I just want to welcome you. Thank you very much for coming tonight. Jane did this presentation last night, and you have more people in. But Jane is also going to do the presentation. She is, and a little bit about the garden tour. Okay, you know about it because it's in 2 weeks, right? Okay. So our meetings are September, and we meet at 6 o'clock. The meeting is at 6. We have a station, cookies and Kool-Aid, 5:30. So I'm going to hand it to Jane so she. Sorry, I forgot to tell you about the mission. The mission is threefold. It's conservation of the Native community, preservation of that community, CPR, because it's the easiest way for me to remember. Jane Higgins is going to present. I'm going to leave that on. Got a mic up here. Okay, everybody can hear me. Before we get started, one of my dear friends here in the League of Women Voters of Florida, we've got copies of this available. Looks like 5 copies here, but it's available online and in the Florida Today newspaper online. So she's very active in it, very social discussion of the importers coming up, and it's scary. So we're going to take a look at anywhere. But I wanted to take the garden for a minute. Sorry, can you go back? I went too fast. So yeah, we're going to go to the garden. Okay, so how many people have for the garden tour already? Okay, awesome. Did you get the message that I had to change the sites? We had a site drop and we had to add a new site. I sent everyone who got their an Eventbrite, and that has to the new, what I call the super secret place where you can get the brochure and the plant list. The new the thing is the new site that we now in there is also an HOA. It's out of 6 on HOA sites. There's only one in gated community, which the gates will be open that day, but not in a HOA. There are sites to visit, so feel free. 2 of them are around here. Gorgeous sites. Also have the brochures for sale out here. A printed copy, it's $20. If you buy it on Eventbrite and you just need the printed copy, it's $5. It really costs, which is amazing. Any questions? That's the first we've ever had a subsidy this late. Also, if you want a printed copy, source Native Flowers in Melbourne, Wild Wet Wacky on Merritt Island, and Vision 43 in Palm Bay also have the hard copy if you need to tell people about that. Okay, so did everyone get this lovely handout today? Anybody not get it? Very important handout. This is also, yes, if you could just open the door there. This is also on our website now on the brevardlandscapetour.org in the resource section. So if you would rather a soft copy, you can always get it there too. Okay? So the talk today is by Stacey Matrazzo from the Florida Wildflower Foundation. Can you back it up, John, to the first slide? And she was supposed to be here yesterday. She was not supposed to be here today. She was supposed to be presenting at Pelican Island. I think what happened is the storm blew all those schedules kaflooey. So I was supposed to be the presenter for today all along. How many people have heard Stacey present? She's an awesome presenter. I apologize if you showed up here today thinking you were going to hear her. You're going to hear me, okay? But still try to hear her again someday because she's very, very good. Stacey is the executive director of the Florida Wildflower Foundation. She's very well degreed in studies related to environmental science. She's a master naturalist, spends much of her free time outdoors, and she's conducted many native plant, edible plant hikes for 15 years and is the co-author of Native Plants for Florida Gardens. An awesome book. We do not have that book for sale right now, but I'm sure you could find it online. So highly encourage you to get to know something about the Florida Wildflower Foundation. How many folks are familiar with that already? A few. It's just a great group. I mean, I can't emphasize it enough. They do a lot of great grants and local programs throughout the state. Yay, the clicker works. So their mission is to protect, connect, and expand native wildflower habitats through education, research, planting, and conservation. Their website is www.floridawildflowers.org, so you can find out more about them. They are funded through license plate sales primarily. So since 2000, they've generated more than $4 million from license plate sales, which is pretty awesome. So if you get a chance to support them via the license plate, that is really cool. They also encourage memberships, etc. So if you like their work, feel free to donate to it. If you've ever gotten that little magazine we hand out everywhere, the top 20 wildflowers in Florida, that's from them. And we just buy bulk from them because it's a donation, basically. Great material that they put out. So this is their new license plate. I think it's pretty cool. So today we're going to talk about native versus introduced versus invasive plants. 3 distinctions that are very important. Okay. So a native plant is any species that originated in its location naturally without the involvement of human activity or intervention. Any species indigenous to a particular region or community where it occupies specific habitats. Generally, it's been there since the 1500s. So the way the native plant community looks at it is it needs to have been here before European settlers arrived in the 1500s. That's the definition of a native plant, okay? Some of the scientific people, have arguments about that, but that's generally the definition. Do we have any science people in here? I always like to ask that before I murder some science terms, okay? I'm not a science person. Okay. An introduced species is any species living outside its natural range that has been intentionally or accidentally brought into a region by humans, sometimes referred to as an exotic, although that term is being sunsetted by the botanical community. You could tell Stacey's a science person. Okay, and here's where we'll be focusing on invasive species. Invasive species are introduced species that did not historically exist in a particular region, ecosystem, or community, and whose introduction causes or is likely to cause an alteration to the natural ecosystem or its biodiversity. So even though it's green does not mean it's good, okay? It can still be a bad guy. So what are the problems with invasive species and how do they impact our natural areas? Generally, invasives, can you guys read that? Oh yeah, that's nice and bright. Have aggressive reproductive strategies. They produce a lot of fruit and seed. The seed may be wind dispersed, carried on animal fur, or eaten by animals and dispersed in their feces. They spread vegetatively with underground rhizomes or above ground runners, and they resprout oftentimes when you just break off a piece and throw it to the side, which is very dangerous. They often flower earlier and longer than other native species. They're fast growing, outpacing natives, and quickly forming dense colonies. They have a long lifespan and few natural controls such as predators, parasites, or diseases, making them strong competitors for resources. Some are allelopathic. Who knows what that means? No, me neither. Very good. That was a test, so you're a science person, okay? Meaning they omit a chemical that prevents other plants from growing in that area. So they'll actually like mess up the soil. And they are generalists that don't require much. Oops, I think I lost my mic. I don't know. Is that better? I got a soccer voice. Okay, maybe it just fell. I can yell if I have to. So they are generalists that don't require much and are often the first species to take over in an open or disturbed area. They come in as pioneers and quickly establish themselves. So in other words, they're very aggressive. Now the impacts of that, they outcompete natives, they decrease natural diversity, and they disrupt the integrity of natural ecology, altering natural processes like hydrology, fire cycle, etc. And you've probably seen where vines weigh down native trees or actually strangle trees. And they reduce the available food and shelter on which wildlife depend. They generally don't provide the resources needed by native wildlife. So there are also economic costs. I was absolutely astounded at this, that the Nature Conservancy estimates that Florida, just Florida, spends over 50 million annually to manage invasive plants. That comes from our tax dollars, that 50 million. So this is how much Florida is spending on municipalities, Florida is spending at the public level. That doesn't count how much we might be spending in our yards to get rid of invasives. That's the government spend on it. That's a lot of money, 50 million. And the economic costs pale in comparison to the ecological costs of invasive species. They're the #2 threat to global biodiversity, second only to habitat destruction. That's pretty amazing. I was pretty stunned by that. So, in Florida, invasive species are monitored by the Florida Invasive Species Council. If you go to this QR code we put on the back, this takes you to that website that's on your left, the Florida Invasive Species Council. It'll go right there, so you know that you're always getting the most up-to-date information. They update this every 2 years. This, I believe, is the 2023 version Lydia put together, but that means in 2 years, there'll be another version, right? So you want to stay up on it. So the two we're going to focus on here today are Cat 1, Category 1 invasive. These are the worst offenders. They've been known to alter plant communities by displacing native species, changing the community structure, They will hybridize with natives, and they're problem plants that require management on a large scale by municipalities. Now, the category 2s are plants that have increased in abundance or frequency, and they're expected to have a damaging ecological impact. In other words, if you see category 2 over here on the far right, there's a good chance it's going to become a category 1. But the category 1s are the ones we really, really, really want to focus on. And I see we have some people here from Melbourne Village. I like that the very first one on the list is the air potato, because I know they're very familiar with that category 1. Okay, but despite this list of known problematic species, most of them can still be purchased at big box stores, which is just insane. So even though we know there's a big problem with them, they're still being used in residential and commercial landscapes, and you'll see examples of that as we go through this. Many people don't know when they are buying a plant from a big box store that it's invasive because it's not being advertised that way. I cannot imagine you could buy an air potato at any big box store, but you can buy some of these other ones at big box store. So over the next several slides, she's going to show, starting with category 1s, and then category 2 invasives commonly used in residential and commercial landscapes, and offer some alternatives. Okay, so first up, category 1 is the camphor tree. Anybody familiar with this? Oh, yes. This lady last night has a big one in her yard, so she was quite upset to find out what a mess it was. It was imported to Florida as an ornamental and for camphor production, primarily used as a specimen tree in landscapes and on roadsides, gets to 50 to 100 feet tall with a dense canopy. A quick way to identify it is to crush the leaves or peel a twig or bark, and it releases that scent of the camphor. Prolific seed producer, collect the seeds in bags to prevent spreading. It's allelopathic, which means it messes up the ground around it, pushes out natives, and has invaded many natural areas. So it's very hard to eradicate. You need to pull the seedlings. Mowing can help a little bit, and stumps must be herbicide. And Jamie, our resident master naturalist, brought up a great point yesterday that there's almost all of these category 1 and 2s. It'll say to herbicide them. And what Jamie said is search on the IFAS website, like if you put in camphor tree, IFAS, it will tell you the specific herbicide to use. You shouldn't be using just any herbicide on anywhere because it might not work and you might have done other damage to other well-meaning plants in your yard. So, she also, Stacey, who does not recommend the use of herbicides, however, they may be required as a last resort to manage certain invasive species, especially if you got anything big going on. I had a camphor tree that was like this big before I realized how invasive it was. So it's, pretty hard to get rid of when it's that big. So here's what you can replace it with, some good alternatives. We'll go down this list. First is the Dahoon holly. It's evergreen. These are all going to be natives, dense foliage, berries. The southern magnolia, if you're not familiar with that, when you go out the doors here outside, look to your left. Right there is a gorgeous magnolia tree, really big, mature one. It's not flowering at the moment, but they are gorgeous when they flower. It's going to be a large tree, large striking and aromatic flowers. Feeds mammals and birds, full sun to deep shade, moist soils. The red bay, also full sun to partial shade, etc. And the sand live oak. So has anyone in here heard the Talamy talk, the Dr. Talamy talk? A few people. Oh, good. So Talamy will say that the anything in the oak tree species, Quercus, supports the most wildlife of anything. So if you have room to plant anything in the oak tree family, do it. That would be your number one thing to plant. You need some room though. I mean, like, I'm saying like these 2 rows of pews at least, because that thing's gonna get big, okay? Not everybody has that kind of room, so obviously don't do it if you don't. You just got a little apartment building lot kind of thing. And what Talamy did is ranked all the native plants on how much wildlife do they support. And you can get that list by zip code. So if you want to know what the most beneficial plants are by zip code, that list exists several places. It's on the National Wildlife Foundation website, the Audubon website, and the Florida Native Plant Society website. So any of those websites, you can go in and search by zip code and find out those plants for your zip code that do the best. So highly recommend that. So the oak tree is awesome, supports over 500 species of caterpillars and pollinators. We love oak trees. Does very well in Brevard County. Also, the winged elm is a really cool, interesting tree. The bark looks like it's got little wings on it. Very fast growing, deciduous. I've got one in my yard, and this says wet to well drained soil. I'm in the sandy soil area, so it obviously likes that. Okay, so we're going to go through this a couple times. Here's the lantana, another category 1 invasive. Anyone seen this bad boy in their yard? Now, okay, so this one is the multicolored flower lantana. We're going to talk about some native lantanas that are solid colors, but if you've got a multicolored one, it's the bad one. And the reason it's bad, well, it was imported as a landscape plant in the 18th century. Yes, pollinators like this plant, but you will see it taking over natural areas throughout the state, disturbed in open areas, pastures. It's toxic to some wildlife, particularly cattle, and it may be toxic to humans. I think I'm going to have to just stop using this thing. I don't want it to keep cutting in and out. And it hybridizes with the native lantana, compromising the gene pool. It's very difficult to eradicate, and you'll probably have to use some herbicide. Yeah, he's coming to rescue me. Thank you. I had this lantana in my yard when I was a newbie, and I thought, oh, it's so pretty. I'll just leave it there. Oh my gosh, the thing, I mean, it turned into like the 6-foot spread, and they are very difficult to pull out. So the sooner you can get it, the better. Okay, that's my advice. Pull it up, and what she would recommend is when you're pulling up invasives like this, bag them up and put them in your regular garbage so they go to the landfill to die a death there. Do not put them in the yard waste because they'll just get chewed up, and then other people are going to get the seeds and the roots and everything. So we have to bag them up. Yeah, if you could pull it up, if you don't have to do the herbicide thing. She also recommends removing flower heads to avoid the spread. Here's the native lantana. That is, you can tell all white, all solid color. There's also white. This is the white lantana. That's all white, much smaller flowers. Both of these lantanas are very good substitutes. They're going to play good. Oh gosh, you sound like you got it going. Thank you. Thank you, John. You are awesome. Okay, we are rocking and rolling here. What that thing says. Okay, another good alternative. What happened here? Did we skip one? Yeah, another good alternative is tropical sage. This guy is very common for native planter people. grows well in sun or shade, reseeds itself. It's a great, great native plant. And the porterweed, we're going to talk about that in a little bit as well, because there is, like the lantana, both a native and a non-native one. So you got to make sure you're getting the native one. And it's the host plant for the tropical buckeye. Okay, here's one you probably all have seen, Mexican petunia. Is there anybody who has not seen Mexican petunia? Okay, so it is a Category 1 invasive, in case you didn't know that. When we did the landscaping project at the post office, the grounds guy came out to his area of Mexican petunia and said, y'all are going to keep this, right? It's really pretty. And I'm like, no, we're not keeping that. It's not, that's leaving. And even when you think you've got it dug out, it's going to come back for a while. You're going to have to really stay on it. Oop, you're losing me again. Okay. It's native to Mexico. No surprise there, right? Introduced in the 1940s. Rapid growth. Attractive to pollinators, but spreads aggressively. Seeds are explosive. Send seeds up to 30 feet away. Oh my gosh, so that's a really hard one to keep up with. High germination rate, and the seeds can float. So double whammy. It's rhizomatose, which means it spreads via underground rhizomes. You can buy sterile varieties, but those are still problematic and still people think it's okay and they're really not okay. Very difficult to eradicate once established, so stick with it. Other alternatives to that are the starry rosinweed, the blue-eyed grass, porterweed, Stokes aster, and spiderwort. So all gorgeous alternatives. Okay, next up on the hit parade, coral ardesia. Anyone who's been to Erna Nixon Park, and if you've worked with us on plant invasive removal days, has dealt with coral ardesia. How many have helped us with those? Looks kind of like a marlberry plant, but it really isn't. We're going to talk about marlberries in a little bit. This is also on the Florida noxious weed list, toxic to livestock, imported from Japan as an ornamental around 1900. I like this. It escaped cultivation in 1982. So it went wild. Gets up to 6 feet tall. It looks like the marlberry because you could tell it's got the scalloped edges, but usually there's a little pink on the end. Need me again?
Batteries.
Oh, you're stealing batteries, huh? Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. And this thing can handle deep to minimal shade, moist, well-drained soils. Remove it before fruits are produced. And you can hand pull smaller plants, but the larger ones, I know at Erna Nixon we had to use this thing called the extractor because you can't hand pull. If it gets about this big, you got to use something else. So replacements would be the marlberry, which flowers year-round, very nice, dense evergreen foliage. The wild coffee, very prolific. Myrcene, which is also a great plant, full sun to full shade, fruits eaten by the birds. The Yupon holly, or gallberry as it's often called, and the blueberry, which likes dry to wet soils, full sun, partial shade. I haven't had much luck with blueberries, but Martha has luck with blueberries. Okay, next up, Suriname cherry. Anybody got this one? Oh, wow. Great. Yeah, I mean, last night, like half the room had Suriname cherry, so I was like, wow. Okay, so we'll cover this one pretty quick then. Introduced to Florida from Brazil in the early 20th century, not actually a cherry. It's a tree or shrub that gets up to 30 feet tall, commonly used in hedge plantings. You can hand pull it. Stumps may require herbicide. We're back to trying.
Okay, you should be good.
Okay.
Testing. Is it turned on?
Yep. We're on. Oh, okay.
You're good.
You're good. Okay. Let's try it again. Beginning to think it's me. Thank you, John. Okay, so good alternatives to this one are the Simpson stopper. And you can see those flowers look a lot like the Suriname cherries flowers, but oops, sorry, I went the wrong way. But they are not. They're a little bit different for the Simpson stopper. And the Simpson stopper has a really nice aroma, very mild aroma that you'll smell in the yard. I doubt the Suriname cherry does. Jamaican caper, another gorgeous flower. If you can put that in your landscape anywhere. Likes dry to moist soils, full sun to partial shade, striking flowers. Just an awesome plant. And the myrcene, which we talked about. Okay, next up, heavenly bamboo. Does anybody have this one? Nobody? Oh, just one? Came with a house. Okay, well, we'll cover this really quick. It was imported from from Asia in 1804 as an ornamental. Not actually a bamboo. It's a more of a grass, fast growing. Produces every way possible: seeds, roots, suckers, rhizomes. There are some sterile forms, but it can still spread and still gives others the ideas to use it. 4 to 8 foot tall, remove before fruit and seeds form and put it in bags. So other alternatives would be the pipe stem, evergreen foliage, really nice for birds and small wildlife. The Yopon holly, which we talked about, and the sweet spire, which I have never seen this one, but does anyone have this in their yard? This looks like a very interesting plant. I'd like to try this one. Partial shade, moist to wet soils, provides food and cover. That's probably why I don't have it. Moist to wet soils. And the rusty Lyonia, which there's a lot of this in Erna Nixon too. It's gorgeous. Evergreen, full sun, flowers attract the bees. It's a very good plant. Okay, next up, we're almost done with category ones, and she's just showcasing a few. She's not doing the whole list here. We'd be here for days. Here's the climbing cassia, also known as the Christmas cassia. Does anyone have this guy? Nobody? Pardon me? It is kind of vine-like, yep. No, you don't have it? Okay, so I'm going to cover it super fast. It is a climber, yep, climbs over canopy. And you can replace that with the privet wild senna. We have several awesome sennas that are natives. Champion's wild sensitive plant and the Maryland wild sensitive plant. Yep, I don't know why it's named Maryland when it's a Florida native. It must be native up the whole East Coast or something. Okay, Japanese honeysuckle. Anyone got this guy? Nobody. Really, nobody? Okay, because we could skip it. Okay, so let's just move right past it because there's a few others here I want to cover. I like the alternatives. We can cover those, which are coral honeysuckle, crossvine, trumpet creeper, and Virginia creeper, which a lot of people think that's an invasive. It's very aggressive. Does everybody have that in their yard? That just shows up. The birds bring it. It's a really good plant, though. It just kind of likes to take over. But it's got some great berries for the birds and small wildlife. The bees love it, and it grows everywhere. It's sun, shade, you name it, it'll grow. Pardon me? Great for making wreaths. Okay, that's a plus. I didn't know that. Yeah, the vine is, yeah, a great vine. I mean, that vine's sturdy. Okay, asparagus fern. Everybody got this guy? Yeah, this is a pretty common one. I had this and it was quite hard to get rid of. Imported from South Africa, not a true fern. It's related to lilies and asparagus. Um, Used as a ground cover, fast spreading by underground runners, tubers, seeds, berries, forms colonies. Freezes will kill it above ground, but the roots will survive. Generally requires an herbicide. I had one at the base of an oak tree, and I mean, it was like a rock. It was so hard to get that out. I had to keep going after it. And that's the thing with a lot of these invasives. When you go tackle it, you are you need to be in for a multi-year project, okay? Because it's going to keep coming back, and there'll be seeds that will sprout up from this thing, or the birds might bring it from somebody else's yard. So you got to be vigilant for a good year or two before you really can claim victory. Okay, so don't give up. So some good alternatives here are the beach creeper, obviously good on the beach side, but elsewhere. Dune sunflower, that's just a great alternative everywhere because it flowers all year long, looks great. The seaside, did I get ahead of myself here? No? Okay. The seaside heliotrope, evergreen as well. Atlantic St. John's wort. And all of these provide great food for pollinators. The dwarf Walter's viburnum. This is a gorgeous plant. The bees and other pollinators love it. And the coon, familiar with the coontie. That's just a rock solid plant if you got room for it. Okay, so now we're going to start into some category twos. So these are medium bad guys, not the super bad guys. So first up on the list is a snake plant. Everybody familiar with this one? Yeah, I had one of these once back when I was stupid, and it was in a pot, and I thought it outgrew the pot, and I thought, oh, let me put it in the ground. What a mistake. The thing like took off like no tomorrow. So as somebody brought up last night, they're supposed to be known to improve air quality if you have one indoors. Just keep it in a pot. Do not put it in the ground, and you'll be okay. It was introduced around 1800 as an ornamental. It's a fiber plant. It's also known as mother-in-law's tongue, bowstring, hemp, and in native lands of the southern tropics and Africa, they use it for making bowstrings and ropes. So it does have some usefulness where it came from. It can tolerate dry and moist conditions, so that pretty much covers the gamut. Spreads via rhizomes. It also has berries, and it pushes out native plants terribly. Remove it by hand and bag it. Does not respond to chemicals because of that waxy coating it's got on it. So you pretty much got to hand pull it or dig it out with a shovel. So you can replace that with sea oxide daisy, gorgeous, pretty plant. Dune sunflower we covered. Christmas berry. I'm not familiar with this one, but it's pretty cool looking. Of course, mully grass. We all love the mully grass. That's beautiful. Stoppers, any kind of stopper, again. Wild coffee and coonties. So those all do well. Okay. Creeping oxide, also known as Wedelia. And this stuff is terrible. Anybody got it? It showed up at my back easement. I don't know how it got there, bird or lawnmower or something. And man, I was out tackling it, and this guy told me, you might as well be trying to count pebbles of sand on the beach. I said, well, I am going to keep trying to get rid of this. It's ranked in the 100 world's worst weeds. Fast growing, mat forming ground cover, spreads by underground runners, and resprouting of fragments. So it's one of those things, if you put a piece down, you know, that you're weeding and you accidentally don't grab it all, that piece is off and running in no time flat. So you need to hand pull it, remove the roots, and bag it, because if you try to put it in a compost pile, it's taken off, right? It's just going to grow even more. Replace that, once you get rid of it, with the dune sunflower, twin flower. Frog fruit is a great one a lot of our folks love, which is a larvae host for white peacock, the foon crescent, and the common buckeye. And sunshine mosa is another very hardy wildflower that is a host plant to the little sulfur. Okay, Chinese wisteria. Anybody familiar with this? Do you have it? You have it in your yard? Oh, yeah. Oh, I bet it was beautiful. Yeah, beautiful but invasive. It was imported from China to Florida in the early 19th century for ornamental purposes. Um, the stems and leaves are toxic to humans and pets. Supposedly, the flowers may be edible in moderation, and it's a very aggressive climber. So it can regenerate from rooted stolons and dispose of in bags. Seeds are heavy, not transported by birds much, but they can float, and their way of spreading is vegetatively. So replace that with American wisteria. This looks beautiful, a very pretty plant. Twines clockwise. I thought that was very interesting, and is a larvae host to many butterflies and moths. The trumpet vine or Carolina jessamine, which is very pretty too. Hummingbirds and butterflies love this one. This can be aggressive and poisonous if swallowed. Okay. Story two. You've probably seen this, very common in housing developments and urban landscapes. It needs little maintenance, but it offers nothing ecologically except in potential spread where it's not wanted. So it's one of those, even though it looks pretty, it's not helping us. It came from Africa, the Middle East in the late 1800s. Fine textured foliage, showy pink, purple, and fluorescence. Drought tolerant, which would be why landscapers would love it. Hand pull seedlings and dig out large clumps before it goes to seed. You can replace that with mully grass, which I love, the mully grass. Split beard blue stem, which is a great full sun to partial shade, dry to moist soils. Or purple love grass, which is also a larvae host. And Fakahatchee grass, which Fakahatchee comes in both a dwarf and the jumbo size, I guess. That's what the other one would be called. The dwarf is about the size of a mully grass, so it's going to be kind of compact, about 3-foot cone. The regular or jumbo is going to be like 5 or 6 feet by 5 or 6 feet. So you want to make sure you're putting that in a space that can accommodate it. Great plant, survives everything, but it's going to get big. Okay, we only got one more to go here. This is the nettle leaf porterweed that we talked about earlier. Anybody got this one? This is the higher one, right? And somebody give this to me, and I thought, oh, this is so pretty. But I quickly got like 5 feet tall, and then I was always having to trim the thing, and then I realized that, oh, it's not the native one. The native porterweed is going to be more ground cover like. It's like 3 feet tall max. You're not going to have to be trimming it. The problem, this guy, the non-native one, was introduced from Asia as an ornamental. It'll get 4 to 6 feet high. It tolerates sunshade, moist, dry, everything. It invades disturbed areas where it outcompetes the native species, and it's hybridizing with the Florida native variety. So that's why you don't really want to have it around, because it's going to mess up the native one. Spreads mostly by seeds on the wind. And if you can replace it with the native blue porterweed, that would be the ideal situation. Again, much more low growing. Or starry rosin weed, blue-eyed grass, Stokes aster, or spiderwort. Okay? So those, yes. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. They are, because I bet they have to constantly trim them back, so cars aren't getting hit with them practically. Yeah. Yeah. I've seen them a few other places too, but bad guy, bad, bad guy. So that's just a few examples of invasives that she went through. There's many, many, many more. Like you got this whole booklet full of invasives, right? So these are just a few that she wanted to bring up with us. What she wanted to do is a call to action by all of us now that we're a little more sensitized to which things are invasive and why it's a problem. So she wants everyone to do their part. And the way you can do that is avoid using invasives in your landscape, because we know we could still all go buy them at big box stores, right? We're not going to be able to stop that necessarily, but you could stop it in your yard, right? And if they're present in your landscape, get rid of them. Try to get rid of them. It will be a battle, but it's worth it in the long run, okay? Because for instance, I don't have red pepper trees on my yard, but I get red pepper seedlings. Why is that? Because somebody else has red pepper trees on their yard and the birds are bringing them over. So the spread of invasives continues when people have invasives. The more any of us can do to help get rid of them, the better off for everybody. And she goes into this whole paragraph about how you can still buy these invasives even online on Amazon, Etsy, eBay, et cetera, et cetera. So don't do it. Don't do it. So even once you've removed your invasives, be sure to survey the area frequently to manage any resprouting or reoccurrence. And of course, what we want to encourage you to do is plant native. We highly encourage you not to buy your natives at the big box stores, because although they'll say they're native, they may not be native to Brevard County. They might be native to Tallahassee. We are going to give you a list here at the end of all the non-native nurseries that are growing natives here in Brevard County that will do well here in Brevard County. So that's the ideal situation. Okay, so for resources, again, if you go to this QR code, you're going to get to all these websites. So we don't have to really go through all that. More of her resources, her website, that the Florida Wildflower Foundation, the Florida Native Plant Society is always a good resource. And here's her book. If you ever see a pretty purple book with the passion flower on it, you'll know it's probably her book. And when you buy your native plants, we're strongly encouraging you to go to the Florida Association of Native Nurseries, because those native nurseries, are native plants, okay? The big box stores do not belong to the Florida Association of Native Nurseries. I can guarantee that. Or if you like to grow seed, from seed, you can also go to this website, the floridawildflowers.com will provide seed. Most of us aren't patient enough for the seed route. We want it now. Ugh. This is the list of nurseries. I know it's just about impossible to read. It's in our newsletter. It's on our website. If you go to the BrevardLandscapeTour.org website, our native nurseries are always on there. All of these are in Brevard County. The northernmost one is Wild Wet and Wacky. That's North Merritt Island, so they're all south of there. There are cards for them are out on the table if you'd like to take them. They're all awesome businesses. We encourage you to support because they're usually small mom and pop businesses and they've got great plants. They're usually cheaper than the big box stores as well. Okay, and last of all, if you'd like to support the Florida Wildflower Foundation, one way to do that is by buying their license plate because they get a chunk of those proceeds every single year, which is pretty cool. So, any questions? Yes, ma'am. It's this QR code right here on the back, and I also printed out the website, floridainvasives.org, in case people aren't QR codey. You could go either way to it. The nice thing about this, when you go to the website, that website, I know Lydia, it drives her nuts because it's not sorted by common name. That's why she did this list sorted by common name. I believe the website is sorted by scientific name. So if you're a scientific name person, which like our Martha is, probably Catherine is, you'd love the website. I like this, the common name. All right. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Pardon me? An announcement? Okay, go right ahead. You want the microphone? No, take the microphone because we're live streaming and we want to be able to hear you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there are people who cook with the green papayas. Yeah, I like them ripe. Okay, any other questions or announcements or again, encourage you to go on the landscape tour if you've never been on one. Because the nice thing about going on a landscape tour is you'll get to see what that 4-inch pot you bought is going to grow up and look like when it gets to be mature. Almost all the yards are mature landscapes. I don't believe there's any new yards. So that way you really get a feel for it. And you can also sort on that website, BrevardLandscapeTour.org, for I'm a full sun yard, a full shade yard, a moist, wet yard, a dry yard, and see all the yards that fit that. So when you go, if you study up and say, I'm a full sun person and I want to only look at full sun stuff. The rest of it's pretty, but I need to focus on full sun. You also get a plant list for each yard, so you could take your plant list and go down that plant list and say, I'm going to get this. And then you are that much more prepared to go home and start on your yard because you've already saw where it's working in full sun, if that's what you're looking for. So we highly encourage people to jumpstart their native yard that way. It's an awesome tool. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am, sir. Yes, it is. You could do them in any order you'd like. And yes, you usually get out, walk around, and see whatever you want to see. I see you've got a walker. There is one on the tour this year that she specifically is ADA compliant because she knows she's going to be needing that in her future. So that would be a great one. That's Somia's, if you would like to go see that one. Some of them are really big. Some of them, you don't have to do the whole big yard. You can do whatever you want. There's also going to be a free plant giveaway at the Rotary Sun Tree Park on US 1. Every ticket holder gets a free plant. Richard here's heading that up. Got a plethora of gorgeous plants that you can pick out one you'd like and take it with you. Again, you could do that anytime during the day, 9 to 4. Yep, however you'd like to approach it. Mhm. Thank you for that plug. Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for coming. And this is our normal meeting space. So next month's speaker is going to be Bill DeLuca from Surfrider. That's going to be very good. Love to have you come back and hear him. Yes, ma'am. It's on the list. Is it on the list here? Oh, good. It might be. Mhm. Yeah, great answer. Yeah, you're just gonna, I know Jessica's got moringas on her property. You just got to keep an eye on them, right? Yeah, so it's called the tree of life because you can eat the leaves and they've got like more vitamins than spinach and they grow super fast and regenerate super fast. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Are they on the list? Well, the pawpaw tree. And what we found last night is that it might have more than one common name. So you kind of have to, I don't see it on here. I think it's a native. I mean, oh my gosh, that's resistant to hurricanes. Yeah, Feeding the squirrels. Right. Yep, I agree. You got this balance. It's all about balance. Any other questions? You got some great experts here. Not me, these guys. All right, well, thank you so much and take advantage of the cards. And come on up and get the League of Women Voters info. You want it?